Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 46 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. This is of course the weekly series where you guys get to ask me questions in the comment section below, and every week I do my very best to answer them. Once again, we do have lots and lots of questions this week, so I do apologise if I don't get round to answering your question, but please don't let that deter you and leave your question in the comment section below for next week's episode. Also, if you do happen to like this video, don't forget to drop a like down below because that really does help the video and the channel. And of course, if you aren't subscribed, which I know many of the people that watch my videos aren't, please hit that subscribe button. I'm almost at 10,000. At the time of recording this video, I think I'm about 210 away or something, which is absolutely awesome. And of course, to mark the 10,000, there will be a giveaway, so you'll probably want to be a subscriber for that. Now, with all that being said, let's get straight on to the first question. David Felix says, do you think they should reveal Baby Yoda's species in The Mandalorian? I would rather not, just to keep up the mystery of Yoda's species. Really enjoying your series. Great job. Thank you very much for that, David. And I am 100% with you, David. I really hope they do not reveal Yoda's species. I want them to keep that a mystery. It's something that we've never found out in all of the films, TV shows, books, comics, things like that. As far as I know anyway, in the EU, Yoda's species has never been explained, and I would love it to stay that way. I'm quite happy that we've got the child and there is another Yoda species, or species of Yoda, whichever way. And I don't really want them to find the planet where there's just loads of Yodas running around. That's just, it will seem a bit weird for me. I just like the fact that we had Yoda. He's a one-off. I know there was also a Yaddle or something in episode 1, and now we've got the child, and I think, you know, keep a lid on it and just keep it at that. Brian Dempsey and my friend Dave from the Hyperspace Vault have both asked a similar question, and they both say, what riser am I using for my loose figures that I've got in my Detolf cabinet? And to answer your questions, I will try and get it into shot now, but it's basically one of these. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, try and get that into shot there. So it's basically some Perspex steps, a riser if you like, which fits perfectly into a Detolf glass cabinet. And I get those from GW Acrylics. I mentioned them quite a lot. I'm not paid to promote them at all. I do like their products though. They do awesome acrylic cases for your carded vintage figures. And they also do other cool things like that, risers and stuff for your loose figures. So they've got loads and loads of decent products. GW Acrylics. Christian, the guy that runs it over here in the UK, is awesome. And if you're in the US and you want to order his stock, then it's all available through Ian's Display Accessories on Facebook. And Ian, again, is a top man. He's also the place where I get my star cases from, if anyone's wondering. Orcut War 98 says, question for next week, which figures have the most releases and which figures has the most variants? Right, so I would imagine, I haven't counted, I haven't looked on any sort of database website, but just guessing, I would probably say Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader have had the most figures over the years. They're the two main characters really from all of Star Wars, and I know for a fact that they've just had loads and loads. If we're talking about the vintage collection in terms of variants, then I think you can't look too far past this guy here, Luke Skywalker in his Jedi Knight attire. So if I just go through them one by one, we have had, I've moved that one there because of the glare. So we have had the original release on the Return of the Jedi card. So that's that one there. You can see it's unpunched. This is 2010. There it is there, VC23. He was also released on a Revenge of the Jedi card variant there. So exactly the same, VC23, but on a Revenge card. He was also released on a different card back. So they've done him on the Jedi Knight outfit card back from Return of the Jedi. Whereas this one is called Endor Capture. So they're trying to correct things here, but again, they didn't quite hit the mark. And then they reissued it, I think last year. Was this a reissue of 2019? I believe it was. VC23 still, but obviously you can see the modern card back. Slight variant on that one is that the accessories are slightly different in the bubble. You can see he's actually holding his lightsaber in all those three, but on this one it's separated. And in the next wave of the vintage collection, we are going to be getting this guy this is the proper Luke Jedi Knight with his cloak and the proper outfit and everything. He is going to be getting released on that card back. So look out for that. Definitely want to get that one. Finally, they've got the right figure on the right card back, and that'll be awesome. So when that comes out, there'll be 5 different Return of the Jedi Lukes, if you like. Although this one, he is slightly different to this one because obviously the outfits are slightly different. But essentially, you know, you could argue that they're all the same figure from the same film. I guess that all that's missing for those is if there was a foil variant version of that one, but I don't believe there is. 1980s and Star Wars guy says, nice vid, Bossk. Thank you very much. How many Darth Vaders do you own? So this sort of carries on from the last question. I think in the vintage collection alone, I've probably got, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 different Vaders. There's foil cards, there's revenge cards, there's a different kind of Vaders. You've got VC93, VC08, I think it is, VC115. There's loads. Loose, I've probably got about 5 different ones. I've got a vintage Darth Vader from 1983 on the Return of the Jedi card. And of course, I've got a loose vintage Vader as well. So, you know, without counting them up, over 10 Vaders at least. I know there's a lot more than that out there though. Marky D 1967 says, hey boss, question for next week. If Hasbro hired you tomorrow and put you in charge of everything and everyone as it relates to Star Wars action figures, what would be the first thing you'd do? Wow, that's a good question. If I was in charge of Hasbro, the first thing I would do would probably be put into motion a Mos Eisley Cantina. I would want a really good Cantina playset with all of the aliens, including the ones that we've never had released, like the Tonica sisters, for example. I think that would be pretty cool. I think it needs to be done. It's a big scene in the whole of Star Wars, and yeah, I think a lot of people would like that. I don't think there'd be too many complaints, put it that way. And as usual, just a little bit of a break from the questions. I did want to just quickly show you this for whoever hasn't seen my video yet for the Carbon Freezing Chamber. The review is up on the channel. This is the figure that came packed inside it. It is a regular Stormtrooper on an Empire Strikes Back card. I do like the card back. It's very nice. The playset, yeah, well, you'll have to see my review to see what I think of the playset. But if you wouldn't mind just watching that video, give it a thumbs up as well, even if you don't like the playset. I'd really appreciate it. Christoph says, hey Bossk, first time question for me. What do you think about soft goods in the vintage collection? Many collectors want them to make the figures more poseable, but in my opinion on 3.75 they just do not fall natural, look silly, and most of the time ruin the figure. Keep up the great work. So this is something that it's half and half for me. I think sometimes they completely mess it up. So if I'm thinking Darth Maul here, I think his cape is bordering on ridiculous. It's all frayed and jagged and just too big. But then when you look at someone like this, and I talk about this figure a lot, you know, this figure wouldn't be half the figure without that really good cape. I think they've absolutely nailed that cape. And for that to be like a plastic cape, that just would not work at all. Other figures where I think they've done really well with soft goods is the Salt Marae or Yak Face figure. Absolutely brilliant. Another one would be the Woof figure. So in the original vintage line, it was Klaatu. And even back in 1983, that Klaatu figure had a soft goods skirt, if you like. It was all woolly, and they've replicated that on the vintage collection figure, and I just think that's awesome. So for me, it's half and half. Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it badly wrong. Cheddar Cheese says, hey boss, question, was there ever a time where you may have thought you're getting too old for Star Wars figures? I went through a brief spell when I thought a man in his 40s should maybe retire from collecting. I changed my mind as I just really enjoy it. I guess Star Wars is just part of me. So yeah, I think, you know, especially, I can't talk for everyone that's younger than me that collects Star Wars, but for my age group in particular that collected the vintage figures back in the day, I think we live in a world of nostalgia these days. If you look at everything that's happening right now, you've got Bill and Ted's coming back, they're doing the Ghostbusters figures again. You know, all those kinds of things is aimed at people around my age to say, look at all the things that you used to love when you were a kid. Isn't it still brilliant that we can still do these things and you're going to buy them? But I think it's completely natural to think about your childhood and the things you used to enjoy when you were a child. And yeah, I don't think there's ever been a time in my life where I've thought I shouldn't be collecting that, or I shouldn't be buying that Lego set, or whatever it might be. And yeah, if anyone ever takes the mickey out of you for that, I would just, just ignore them, to be honest. You like what you like. Walter Skywalker says, hey boss, do you think Qui-Gon Jinn deserves an updated vintage collection, considering previous Qui-Gon figures got body and face right but never on the same figure? I don't think he necessarily deserves an updated vintage collection figure in terms of being pushed ahead of lots of other figures that we currently need that we haven't had before. But ultimately, yeah, with the photo real tech, I think that is a figure that could be improved upon for sure. Psycho Emerald says, hey Bossk, I have a question for next Ask Boss Bounty episode. What are your thoughts on the Power of the Force figures from the 90s? I know that a lot of fans have their opinions on them. So I was one of those people that collected them. I have got rid of most of them, I must admit. I've still got Bossk and a few others knocking about, a Boba Fett and stuff like that. I did have lots and lots of those figures. My opinion on them is that the early ones were all muscle men and they looked horrendous. They got better as time went on. And when they eventually got to the Power of the Jedi line, which looked very similar to the sort of green card backs of the Power Force 2, they got really, really good. They were half decent figures. So it's not something that I would actively collect these days. I much prefer the vintage look. Going back to the question about, things from your childhood, these are the sorts of things that I had as a kid, and that is why I gravitate to those more. But yeah, the Power of the Force 2 figures had their place in that time, and I don't think there's anything wrong with them particularly. Dark Jedi Johnny says, hey Boss, question for next week. Do you think that little Bossk would be into Star Wars if you wasn't into it? Do you think he would have found it on his own without the seemingly strong influence of your large collection and passion? Yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it? He likes lots of other things other than Star Wars as well. He watches all sorts of stuff on YouTube, which I think it's a complete waste of time personally, but I think I would like to think that he would have found it by himself. He has sort of watched the films on Disney Plus without me sort of saying, do you want to watch Star Wars? He'll just watch them. He does enjoy it. He doesn't like it just because I like it. But he definitely collects the figures and loves it as much as I do because of the strong influence. I don't think there's any two ways about it, but I think that's great. I think that's a father and son relationship, isn't it? You pass down things and hope that they catch on to it. Owen Brown says, great episode Tim, possible controversial question for next week. Ooh, I do like a controversy. How do you feel Kathleen Kennedy has handled the franchise so far, and do you think she needs to step down? Wow. I don't think that you can attribute everything that's been bad in Star Wars to one person. And I don't think everything lies at the fault of Kathleen Kennedy. Recent revelations about the story not being worked out till the last minute. I mean, man, we knew that already, didn't we? I mean, it's pretty obvious. None of the new sequel trilogy really sort of connect with each other. There's no sort of big arc storyline, and the one that there is, it just goes off all over the place. But she also has been at the helm for other good things. Like I enjoyed Solo, I loved Rogue One, I loved The Mandalorian. And people say, oh, she doesn't really have anything to do with The Mandalorian. She's still in charge of the, Lucasfilm. So she must have some kind of influence there. Do I think it's time for her to step down? Yes, I truly believe somebody like Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni should be in charge of the whole thing and making the overriding decisions about everything. And true Star Wars fans that know what they're doing will go a long way in making quality content. Fox026 says, hey Bossk, awesome channel. You've helped me get back into collecting. That's good news. Thank you very much, my friend. I'm glad I've done that. I always try to buy 2 figures when I can, one to open, one to keep carded. My question is, with the ones you open, what do you do with their cards? Do you keep them or toss them? Keep up the awesome work. I try and open my card backs as neatly as I possibly can, and then I keep them. I mean, I'm a Star Wars collector, so essentially I'm a hoarder, aren't I? We all do it, right? Especially the vintage cards, I try to keep those in decent nick as possible, and then have them in an empty case altogether. I don't really know why I do that, particularly when I've got a carded version, but it's just something that I do. And if I happen to mess one up and I rip it, then it goes straight in the bin. Biker Scout 74 says, hi Tim, question for next week. What stores do you remember getting your Star Wars figures from back in the 80s? And what other lines were you into as a kid? Oh man, you're putting me down memory lane now. Man, Gamley's. We had a shop called Gamley's, which was just the best store ever. Pretty much half of it was taken up with Star Wars. It was just amazing going into there. I also had a Tesco's, which had like a toy shop sort of connected to it. I think it was still part of Tesco's, but it was just toys. And that was just full of Transformers and Star Wars. It was amazing. So those two in particular. The Toys R Us nearest to me was quite far away, so I didn't really venture there too often. So it's more local toy shops like the two that I've mentioned. In terms of other lines that I was into when I was a kid, I used to play with Action Man, Action Force, Britain's Aliens. Remember those? Those sort of green things that all connected together. I'll try and find an image and stick it up there for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about. Zoids, used to have some of them. Transformers was massive for me. I mean, during the sort of mid-80s, it was just Star Wars and Transformers that pretty much ruled my life in terms of toys. I did like the mask figures, but they came a little bit too late, as did things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was way too late for me. I was into skateboarding and stuff by then. Hugo Dude says, question for next week, do you want a few add-ons to the Jabbas Palace in the vintage collection, like maybe a throne room and an entrance, and could it come with a roof and maybe a Rancor pit? So in answer to that question, yes, I would definitely like more pieces for the Jabbas Palace. The throne room would definitely be something I would like. The Rancor pit would definitely be something I would like. Whether it would come with a roof, I think we're stretching a bit too much there. It just costs too much money, I think. But I think some extra bits can be added on to the one that we do have, so why not? I'm all for that. Dean Birch says, great videos, brother. Thank you very much, Dean. Question, what are your top 3 C-3PO 3 3/4 figures ever made? My top 3 are the C-3PO Salacious Crumb, Endor Throne, and the Vintage 78. I would probably have to agree with your choices there. I do not have that one with the Endor Throne, but I know the one you mean, and I know it's a good figure. I have this one here. This is my son's now. It was gifted to him by the awesome Jeff from California. This is a really great figure. I love this thing. This is really good. Vac metalized, or shiny. And of course the vintage one. I mean, this is the removable limbs one. I do have the non-removable limbs one as well, but he's in my first 12 case, and to be honest, I couldn't be bothered to get him out. But yeah, I agree with your selections, my friend. Alright then guys, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching as usual. Please leave your questions in the comment section below for next week's episode. I really love doing these Q&A videos. Gives me a chance to connect to the community and to my subscribers, so thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for my Patreon supporters. Going to put those up on the card now. Really appreciate the support on that as well, so thank you very much. And of course, as usual, we'll see you on the next video.